Coming to the manufacturing aspect of any product, so we need to know what all components are actually needed to manufacture the product and what all operations have to be executed in a sequence to complete the manufacturing process. In the same time, we also need to understand like which operation has to be manufactured at which work center, right? So now this is a common phenomenon that the shop floor is going to manage in the factories. But now in SAP, let's try to understand how the master data has been categorized or managed for the production planning scenarios in manufacturing a product. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we'll be discussing about the master data objects that are related to the production planning scenarios in SAP. So here in SAP, we basically have five master data that will play a major role in the production planning module or while manufacturing a product in SAP. So the first one is the material master, which basically talks about the product code that we are manufacturing. So in material master, the production planning, it basically depends on the parameters we maintain in the MRP views, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, and also the work scheduling view. And then we have the bill of material, so which is also called as BOM. So this holds the information of the complete list of components that are needed to manufacture a product. And then we have the work center or the resource. So this is basically the machine or the production line in which the manufacturing operations takes place. Then we have the master recipe or the routing. So this basically uh, tells us the sequence of the operations while manufacturing the product. So which operation should be carried in what sequence and in which work center or resource. So that kind of information will be handled in the master recipe or the routings. So now you can see here, we can call this as a resource or a work center, and here the master recipe or a routing. So these have been categorized based on the business the manufacturing is going to take place. So, for example, in case of a pharma or a food industry, we basically use the terminology as resources for the machines or the work centers. But whereas in case of a discrete manufacturing or an assembly line, so we call them as a work center, right? So similarly, for the pharma and the food-based industry, the sequence of operations will be categorized under the master recipe, which will also hold some information about the total lead times of the operations, along with some formulas and so on. And similarly, for the discrete manufacturing or to assemble the product, the sequence of operations are basically stored in the routings. And the last one, which is the production version. So this basically tags the master recipe along with the bill of material for a particular product. So this production version will be again maintained in the material master. It can be in MRP4 view or the work scheduling view. So this production version, it basically helps us to relate the bill of material and the routing for one particular product. So we know that in the manufacturing process, we can have multiple production lines or multiple work centers where the same activity can take place. So that depends on the capacity of that particular machine on that day and also the availability of resources. So let's say according to the master data, we are actually supposed to use the production line 1, right? So which has been defined in the routing here for the product. For some reasons or the breakdown per reasons, so the production line 1 is not available for production. So now we have the flexibility to choose the production line 2, which will be part of the routing again, but with a different production version. So one material can have like multiple production versions with several combinations of the routing and the bill of material, right? So the same way like we can use the various combinations in the routing, we also can use a combination of components in the bill of material. So here we will have a multiple bill of materials with several combinations of components. So depending on the availability or the seasonal usage. So those bill of materials will be assigned to the same product, but the usage will be again decided based on the production versions. So let's get into more details of that when we look at the SAP screen here in just a minute. So now going to the details of the material master. So in a common terminology, you will basically have a product that physically exists, and in order to define the product, we need to create a material code in the system with a particular nomenclature. So here I'm taking an example of a gear cycle. So the material code that I'm going to create here will be GC7765. So this describes the material code in SAP for the product, right? And next we have the bill of material. So as you can see in this picture, in order to manufacture the gear cycle, we do need several set of components, right? We need the seat, we need the shifters, I mean to say the gear shifters, the handlebars, brake levers, disc brakes, chains, sprockets, and so on, right? So all these together, when assembled, so that makes the cycle as a finished product, right? So now when I look at the bill of materials or the list of components that I would need to manufacture the cycle, so these will be my complete set of components, right? So now coming to the resources or the work centers. So like I said, we basically categorize it based on the usage of the terminology into the business line. So here, since we are talking about the gear cycle, so that would fall under the discrete manufacturing process. So let's use the terminology as work center. So now when we talk about the work centers, it can be a single machine where the activities takes place, for example, the welding operation or the drilling operation or a cutting operation. And similarly, the work center can also be a production line where multiple activities takes place in one go, right? So once we drop in the raw material at the first machine or the first machine, so while the activity completes here in the production line, we get the finished product or the semi-finished out of the production line. But while categorizing the work center, we can decide whether it is a machine or a processing unit or a production line. Next into the routing. So the routing, it basically describes that what activity has to take place in order to manufacture the product and in what particular sequence. So let's say in this image we can see there are several operations, I mean several machines with several operators, and now we have defined the sequence of operations here. So now the first stage is basically to do the sharing part or the cutting of the raw materials. So now the cutting has been completed, so this material will be passed on to the next machine or the operator where the next activity is going to be performed. And similarly, after the second operation is completed, the material flows into the third machine where a different activity like drilling, milling, or painting, such kind of operations will take place. And after that, it goes to the fourth stage or the fourth operation where the assembly operation can also take place. So these sequence of operations and the number of operations, it varies and based on the type of product we are manufacturing and the number of stages the product has got during the manufacturing process. So now coming to the production version, as we have discussed, so we have a bill of material for the material which carries the complete set of components. So this bill of material will be assigned into the routing or the master recipe, wherein which we assign this components into each of these operations. So let's say in the first operation of cutting, I need to use a raw material 1 and raw material 2. So now I can do a component allocation in the routing in that first and the second operations, right? So when I look at the routing, I see the complete set of bill of materials I have defined for the product, and the component allocation can be done by the user in the routing. So once we have the master data setup completed in the routing, so then we also need to maintain the work centers for that particular operation. So let's say the first operation is cutting or drilling, and I need to tell the system that this is the work center where the cutting or the milling operation is going to take place. So that's how we are going to link the work center and the bill of material into the routing. So once we have the combinations done or the assignments done into the routing, so then we create a production version for the product. So this production version, it basically holds the combination of the bill of material and the routing number. So like I said, there can be multiple bill of materials for the same product and multiple routings for the same product, right? So there can be, multiple permutations and combinations depending on the usage uh, or the manufacturing sequence, right? So those sequences or the combinations will be created as a production version and will be assigned to the material master of the finished product in the MRP4 view or the work scheduling view. So now let's get into the details in the SAP system. Let me first take you to the material master and show you the MRP views and the work scheduling view. So I'm just opening the material master MM03, and here is the material code for the gear cycle, and these are the views I'm going to choose: MRP 1234 and then the work scheduling view. So now in the MRP1 view, we basically assign the base unit of measure for the product, so which is pieces here in this case, since it is a discrete unit of measure. And then what kind of MRP are we going to use while planning for this product, right? Or do we need the MRP at all? So since I want to maintain the material into the material requirement planning, so then I've activated the MRP type as PD. So this material is now relevant for MRP. And then I'm going to assign the MRP controller. So this basically tells me that this MRP controller code is responsible for planning of this particular material or the product. And then we have the lot sizing procedure. So here I'm going to define whether I'm going to manufacture the finished product in the lot for lot order quantity or any fixed lot size. So now I would like to manufacture the product based on my forecast planning, or it can be based on my customer requirement. So if my forecast planning is for 10,000 pieces, so then I'm going to uh, manufacture 10,000 pieces. Let's say if I'm going to use the fixed lot size, right, in the lot sizing procedure, and my fixed lot size is basically 20,000 pieces, and now my forecast is for 10,000 pieces. So after MRP run, system is going to create a planned order for the fixed lot size quantity, which is 20,000. So here in the fixed lot size, so MRP is always going to create the multiples of the fixed lot size based on the requirement quantity. So let's say my forecast quantity is for 30,000 and my fixed lot size is 20,000. So then it would create, two planned orders, two different planned orders with 20,000 quantities each. So that's how the fixed lot size is going to work. So we'll get into more details of that in our next videos. So for now, I'm going to manufacture the cycle based on my requirement quantity. So then I'm going to use it as EX. So then going to MRP2 view, I'm going to decide what will be the procurement type of this material, whether it is an in-house manufactured or an externally procured material. So since it is an in-house manufactured item, I have maintained the procurement type as E. So this basically stands for the in-house manufacture. And then what would be the lead time to manufacture the material in-house? So here my in-house production days will be 3 days to manufacture a cycle. So usually there are two ways where we can actually define the lead times of any product. One would be in the material master in the in-house production days, and the second one is in the routing where we define the lead times per piece or per unit, right? So in case we use the lead time scheduling in the MRP, so then the planned orders will be scheduled based on the lead times that we define in the routing, but not the in-house production days that we have it in the material master. Okay. And then in MRP3 view, we're going to assign this strategy group. So this will be useful if we are basically into an make to order scenario, or if you're into a forecast based planning, something like a demand driven uh, replenishment process. And here in the MRP4 view, we can assign the production versions here, right? And similarly, in the work scheduling view, again, we can basically assign the production unit, the production supervisor, and also the production scheduling profile. So let's say if the product you're manufacturing is basically serial number managed. So let's say in case of an automobile manufacturing, we always see a serial number for each and every unit of that particular part or the finished product, right? So in that case, we have the serial number profile here where we can assign the serial number profile so that each and every piece that we manufacture here in SAP will get a unique serial number provided by the system that can be punched or typed on the product for a easy identification. So here in the work scheduling view and also in the MRP4 view, we have this icon where you can actually click and see the production versions that we can assign. So here I've only assigned one production version for the production line 1. So if I go into the details of this, it is going to tell me that this production version 001 is basically valid for a lot size of one piece. So this is the minimum lot size, and this is the max lot size. So if I would like to manufacture only one piece, so then this is the combination of the routing and the bill of material that I can use into my production orders. Similarly, if I would like to create a different combination of the master of the routing and the bill of material in case I would like to manufacture the quantity in bulk. So let's say I'm going to manufacture 10 cycles. I mean, as a minimum quantity and 20 cycles as a maximum quantity. So then I can use a different set of components, right, as a different bill of material. So then I can use an alternative BOM 2 for the same product that will have a different set of components again. So this is how we basically use the production versions to link the routing along with the bill of material. And once we assign this production version, we also can set the valid from date and the valid to date, which basically describes the validity of this production version. And please also make sure that you always see a green light over here on the production version. So if there is no green light, it means that the production version is not consistent and it cannot be directly copied into the planned orders and subsequently to the production orders. So we always need to make sure that the consistency check has been performed and we see a green light on these production versions. So now let's get into the details of the routing or the bill of material of this material or the product. So for that, I'm going to use the display bill of material CS03, assign the plant and the BOM usage as production. So now here we see the bill of material for this gear cycle or the product that we are actually discussing. So here we can see there are 6 components or 6 parts that we basically need to manufacture this particular gear cycle. And here in the quantities, we can also see the total number of quantities that we would need for each of these raw materials or the semi-finished. So now here there is a checkbox which basically talks about the assembly indicator. So this will get activated automatically if there is a bill of material for one of the components that we have here in the component list. So this particular item, this is a semi-finished item. So let's assume this as a handlebar, right? So the handlebar can have the brake assembly, I mean the brake levers and the handles, the grips and so on. So all those together can be treated as a semi-finished item, right? So it has its own bill of material, but while assembling the cycle, the finished product, I'm going to use the handlebar as the semi-finished itself along with some raw materials, right, which can be assembled right in the assembly line. So whenever you see an assembly indicator here, it means that this itself is a bill of material again. So when you just double click on this assembly indicator, the system is going to navigate you to the bill of material of this semi-finished item. So now we have seen the quantities here, and we know the components that we need and how much we need. But for how many quantities of the finished product are these mainly defined here? So that will be available here in the header screen of the bill of material, where we can see the base quantity as one piece. So it means that for one piece of this gear cycle, I would need these many quantities of these components. Okay, so let's have a look at the routing. So for that, I'm going to use CA03 to display the routing of the material. So here is my routing where I see the sequence of operations and the work centers where the several activities takes place during the manufacturing process. So now here I basically have two operations. The first one is the assembly and the second one being the drilling operation. And the sequence I need to follow is the operation 10 goes first, and then after completing operation 10, I should go to operation 20, right? So now the operation 10, I know that from the description, this is the assembly process 1. So where should I perform this assembly process? So the work center that we see here as assembly, this is the place where this particular activity needs to be carried out. And similarly for the drilling line 1 activity, I need to perform this one in the work center as drilling, right? And now, in order to define the lead times of these operations, we can basically assign it in the details of the operation. So here the operation 10, which is for the assembly, it basically has the setup time as 10 minutes and the machine time as 10 minutes and the labor time as 10 minutes. So in this way, we can basically assign up to a max of 6 activity types for each operation or any work center combination. So now going back to the next operation for the drilling. Similarly, for one piece, I would basically need 5 minutes of a setup time and 10 minutes of a machine time and 15 minutes of a labor time, right? So these activities, like I said, the setup, machine, labor, so these can be increased up to 6. So let's say you would like to also calculate the overheads, or you would like to calculate the fuel that you basically need to execute an operation or to run a machine. So that fuel also can be categorized as one of the activity here, and we can define, like, to manufacture 1 unit of any product, how much fuel is basically needed. And similarly it applies to the electricity as well. So if I go into the details of the work center, so here the transaction is basically CR03, where I can display the details of the work center. So this work center, it basically tells me, like, based on the category of the work center, whether it is a machine, a product line, or a person. Let me just show you the options we have here. Yeah. So these are the options we have, and based on this, we can choose the appropriate category of the machine that we are talking about. And coming to the costing view here, so this is where we basically create the activities and assign it for each of these activity types for this particular cost center. So it means that for this cost center, I've actually assigned three activities in onto this work center. So whenever a production order has been created and the operations are confirmed, so these three activities will get posted into the production order, and based on the settlement process or the variance calculation, so the values will be derived by the costing department uh, based on the actual postings that we have made during the confirmation process. So that's all for today, guys. Hope you have liked this video. So keep watching my channel for more such interesting videos, and please do share your comments under the comment section, and we'll meet soon again. Thank you so much, and please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you have liked the video, please do like it and also share it with your friends. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye.